What's up everyone? Today's video, I'm going to explain a stock dividend. I'm coming at you from Medellin, Colombia. I found this beautiful spot to film. I'm just visiting here, decided to get out and explore. So what is a stock dividend and how do they work? There's two types of stocks. There's growth stocks or value stock. A growth stock is one that's focused on growing the company and expanding. A value stock is one that's reached their point of growth where they're satisfied and they're just kind of going along. They're not necessarily growing exponentially and expanding. Value companies are those that tend to give out dividends. A dividend is when a company pays the person that owns the stock money in exchange for being a shareholder. So a shareholder is someone that owns stock, and companies give out dividends to shareholders kind of as a thank you, like a bonus for owning their stock, because value stocks aren't necessarily focused on growth, so you might not get as much growth from them. So what they need to do to incentivize you to hold their stock is to give you some cash, a little incentive. It's called a dividend. Every few months, companies decide how much to give their shareholders in exchange for holding their stock. And this is based on how much they've done in sales typically, and sometimes it's a set percentage that they've just agreed to give, like I will give you 5% for owning my stock. This does change over time, but some companies keep it pretty stable. When you see a company's dividend, if it's 5%, for example, that's over the course of the year. So they'll take that 5%, break it into 4 parts and give it to you every quarter. So over the course of the year, you get 5%. This is beneficial, and a lot of people love dividends because say the company doesn't do great over the year, they only have a 3% return, but then they have a 5% dividend, then you get an 8% return overall. On the other hand, if they do even worse and they say they have a negative 5%, you still get that dividend. Now you're in a break-even point. You didn't really make money, but you didn't lose money either. So that's why some people like dividends. There are some things to be aware of with dividends. If the dividend is really high, it's for a reason. It's because that stock is probably pretty risky, so they have to give you extra money, more than they should, because they know their stock is like going crazy and they want to incentivize people to hold their stock. So they'll pay them even more. I get pretty skeptical if I see anything over 5% because it's a warning sign that something might not be right with the stock. A lot of times companies could be in some trouble and they don't want their shareholders to sell their stock, so they will pay them an increased dividend. So if you see dividends going up significantly, be aware, because typically they'll jack the dividend up to get you to hold it, but then they're in trouble, so they're going to cut that dividend and you're going to be at a loss. So do not get deceived by dividends. A lot of people do. They're chasing dividends and then their stock price is going down and it just doesn't really make sense. So that's something to be really aware of when it comes to dividend paying stocks. Dividends are fine and they're good, but if they're too high, it's for a reason. If anything seems too good to be true, it probably is. So just think about that. Just to recap, a dividend is money that companies pay the people that own their stock in exchange for owning it, because they're either not really growing much and they want to reward their shareholders for owning their stock, or they might not be growing at all. They might be in some financial trouble and they really want to make sure people don't sell their stock. So there's pros and cons like everything. Find out if a stock dividend's too good to be true, why that is. If it's 5% or lower, I think you're sitting good, but realize that you might be giving up some growth. And if you're okay with that, go for it. Let me know if you have any questions below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.